up in the air?
Yeah, that's a good question. Guys, I'll let you know. I just, I was planning on being here for lecture on Thursday, but Tim and I realized that if we don't get to Browning sort of earlier in the day on Thursday, we're not going to have really enough time to install this solar thermal technology that we promised them. There was another meeting recently where Billy Joe Kipp, the president of Blackfeet Community College, came down, and we've, our collaboration between the Energy Technology Program and the Blackfeet Community College is it's been a very positive thing. I mean, one thing that we've sort of refrained from doing is saying, hey, we're going to come up and save the day here with all this stuff. I mean, it really is a two-way street. When we had the Blackfeet here, I learned that a lot of my kind of very quick and direct form of communication was not really appropriate in a lot of ways. And it's sort of like, okay, now we're going to take turns, and you're going to listen to me for a while. And it turned out to be a great learning experience for me. But some of the things that we've been sharing with them, like, hey, there are ways to make electricity from wind. There are ways to make heat directly from the sun. So that's what we're going to do in Browning on Thursdays, install one of these solar thermal outfits that we built at SpawnCon last week, and install it on the home of one of the students that were here. It was a similar system that I had on my office on an experimental basis. The thing got so hot that we were melting styrofoam that being an issue. So we've since moved on to using fiberglass as an insulation. But that's where I'll be on Thursday. If I can get Mark Olson in here to teach for me on Thursday, I will. Otherwise, I'll let you just move through the rest of the chapters. But I think we can finish chapter 6 now and get you prepared for your exam on Thursday. So, yeah. And I think Mark and Tim did a good job, getting most of the way through the coal chapter. And there's really not enough time to cover every single page and every single diagram of the chapter. I wish there were. I mean, you can tell even at the pace I'm moving right now, it's hard to
discuss things.
Yeah, and I think it's more important to really dig into that first law and second law like we just did deeply, so that you've got a full appreciation rather than just kind of skimming through everything at once. So, all right, let's get back into chapter 6, one of my favorites, as I've already mentioned. Okay, here's, well, I guess this might be the last little figure that we didn't cover, but these boilers obviously are under pressure, and here's one of the downsides. If you don't have the metallurgy to keep up, you've got your technology literally going ballistic. So this is the parabolic trajectory of a boiler blowing up. Imagine a gas cylinder when all the gas spewing out. You've essentially made a rocket. Okay, so the next section here is all about steam turbines. And I'm going to skip ahead one little shot here. Okay, so the engines that we've looked at up to now, and I'm on page 198, looking at figure 617. This is again, this is still heat to motive power, but what you can see is that we've skipped the reciprocation step. There is no cylinder here. Nothing has to go back and forth and up and down. Every time you're sort of going back and forth, up and down, you're more or less losing additional energy to acceleration and to friction and all that. So the answer was to come up with something that still took steam, and what you can do is imagine steam coming in. Now, in this case, you can see that the blades themselves go from sort of short to tall. And so at the right-hand side, if you can imagine an outer casing which has been removed, the outer casing is just going to, more or less going to form a seal between the blades and the chamber. So steam comes in, and you can see each one of these blades is tipped just so, and so as the momentum of the steam, or the kinetic energy, if you will, the steam coming in here, it pushes each one of these little blades to the right, or if we were looking down the barrel of this, it's going to spin them in the counterclockwise direction. You'll also notice that as we get further along, the height increases, thus increasing the size of the volume. So it's allowing that steam to sort of expand more and more as it gets to the end. So it's sort of like a cone or a funnel, and you're pushing in through the small end, and it's coming out the big end, just like a trumpet, more or less. But inside that trumpet is this spinning thing. So again, heat to motive power, that spinning blade there. Here's another detail of how you, again, might make the technology a little more efficient. So rather than just having one set of spinning blades, you've got another set of stationary blades. So again, the steam comes in this direction, shoots pushes the blades in this way in a, let me just take a look here. Why is this guy? Oh, I'm sorry. The blue blades are moving and the gray ones are stationary because the shaft is spinning. If we looked from the left to the right, you'll notice the shaft is spinning in a clockwise direction. So what these stationary blades do is more or less give that steam sort of a head start, if you will, on deflecting the moving blades, rather than just having it come at them straight. And
direct on the movement.
Yeah, directed on the movement. And a lot of simulation goes into this. I've a few years ago, I submitted a patent for a wind turbine, and a lot of math goes into just making those blades just show. I mean, you can do it by trial and error. So there are a full set of Navier-Stokes equations, as they're called, that govern how thermal fluids move through systems. And if you run a proper simulation, you can essentially build the system virtually many times over and come up with more or less the optimal or most efficient system. So obviously, as these moving blades spin, you've got your motive power. Okay, attach this guy to a boat and a propeller, and away you go. It's in a similar way, well, maybe not so similar. You've probably all seen jet skis. Jet skis are going to have some kind of propeller or impeller, it's typically called, in the back. Same thing, but in the case of the jet ski, you usually have an internal combustion engine, spinning a shaft, etc. But you can imagine with a turbine prop, no need for reciprocation. So this guy, and there's kind of an interesting bit of.
Basically, you just have a valve that you regulate the amount of steam that goes into that.
For your throttle, just how quickly and again, you're going to want that steam as hot as possible, without obviously melting the parts or what have you. But let's just read this thing here. It says the high rotational speed. So these systems, especially these smaller systems, have to rotate fairly quickly as the steam moves through. So the high rotational speeds meant that the steam turbine never became a serious option as a propulsive system for road vehicles. And that's why we don't see, maybe out in some of these desert competitions, you might see that, rockets attached to cars and whatever, but not so great for just getting around town. Nor did it displace the reciprocating steam engine for locomotives. Again, you're kind of looking for higher torque, not higher RPM. And in general, the turbines give you high RPM but kind of low torque. And I think you guys understand that. It did, however, find one major application as a marine engine. Parsons foresaw this and realized that its adaptation for naval ships would speed its acceptance in the world of merchant shipping. He also knew that the British Admiralty had a history of resisting all innovation. Well, and maybe to some, it's tough, it's expensive, and
So you're right
sometimes.
with your analogy with the drinking tea at the university.
There we go. The Admiralty drinking their tea resisted innovation. They had notoriously insisted on wooden hulls when others were already using iron. So again, this is a British book, by the way, so these guys get to take a shot at their own. And had initially rejected steam engines. Pearson's therefore decided on a demonstration and constructed a remarkable vessel. Turbinia, figure 6.619, which we're looking at right now, was 100 feet long and by less than 3 meters wide and less than 1 meter drop. That means it was only down in the water by 1 meter. She was driven by 3 turbine engines in triple cross-compounded arrangement, delivering a total of 2,300 horsepower, not too shabby, to her screw propellers, like the impellers, even the propulsion mechanism. Taken in secrecy to cows, she roared out into the 1897. So we're actually a century after that Trebethick car rolled out. Of the fleet at Splithead with Parsons at the controls and traveling, as said, at the unheard, ungodly speed of 38 miles per hour. And so that's going to, kick the pants off of a sailboat. There was something else in here. It seemed like there was some kind of scandal. Well, if you look back down a little further, it says oil-fired steam turbines were adopted by the British, et cetera, et cetera. The cost per unit energy was greater than for coal. And we still struggle with that today. I mean, coal is just literally dirt cheap. I mean, that's why we're still going after it, mainly for economic reasons.
But they use oil because it was easier to
oil,
transport and store on the boat.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we typically use petroleum products for our transportation. Here we go. It says, as early as 1912, a ship with a strange appearance had been launched in Denmark. This was the Selenadia, the first diesel-powered ocean-going vessel, proudly announcing her new style engines by having no funnels. By 1927, there were more diesel than steam vessels under construction worldwide. Well, anyway, I guess that was kind of a revolution. I guess I'm curious as to what happened ultimately with the Turbania. Maybe there was no conspiracy. Okay, well, so let's move on. So again, what we just saw was using a steam turbine to push a boat through the water. Now, what we're seeing now are one set of turbine blades for a 100 megawatts. So this is 1 gigawatt tandem compound steam turbine. This is a 1.1 meter long blade. So this thing is kind of half your body size, if you will, sitting inside this turbine. Now, these guys are huge. There are no such thing as a machine that's a one gigawatt vehicle. I mean, you might say, well, a rocket's probably at least that, but nothing with a turbine like this. So these are made for stationary power. And obviously what's going on, there's still heat engines. Steam still goes through them, turns into rotational energy. What's happening on the back end of this thing, though? And what's it ultimately being converted into?
Electricity.
Yeah, electricity. So you get some magnets on there, and electricity is being pumped out. Okay. Now that's just, so these things obviously can become more and more complex and more efficient. Very similar concept we just saw when we were looking at that sort of brass opened up turbine. You've got high pressure, and everything's just sort of small, and things are sort of going through quickly, high pressure, high temperature. As that gas expands, I mean, it's still not all the way down to atmospheric pressure. So if you remember all the way back when we were talking Carnot's equation, you've still got a little bit of residual heat coming through, right? So that T1, that temperature 1 is still sort of out here in the atmosphere somewhere. So even though the steam in the high pressure system has lost a lot of its thermal energy, it's still not all the way at the bottom. You use it in this intermediate pressure turbine. Why is it set up this way? Well, just more compact. You know, it goes in at the high pressure side, comes out the low pressure side, in this intermediate system, and then again, even to a yet lower pressure, and then finally out to the generator. So the top one is just called the tandem compound, and then the bottom one is called a cross compound. So you could have two separate generators running at two separate speeds rather than everything tied into one single shaft. Okay. And then cooling tower, we sort of see some of the same thermodynamics going on here. So in order for these systems to operate at their highest efficiency, you want to have the hot temperature as hot as possible and the low temperature as low as possible. Where are you going to get that low stuff? Well, just from Mother Nature, right? Just coming in at whatever temperature she provides. And so, you know, through this, you then get your nice big delta T. You're allowing that delta T happen in the cooling tower. And I mean, this is just a much bigger version, really, David, from that question you had about the other stationary tank. I mean, it's the same version. It's the exact same version, just a much larger embodiment of that. Okay, and then this is, you know, looking at a 660 megawatt turbine, just a sort of a schematic, if you will, of the boiler. This is, you know, the front end, if you will, of all the gases coming on. Hey, take care. See you around. Heading out to make electricity. Some steam is still coming out. You can see it's at much lower pressure here, 10 kilopascals, and this is 10 kilopascals above atmospheric pressure. What percentage of atmospheric pressure is 10 kilopascals? Anyone know off the top of your head? This is another number that I'd like you to kind of know. Atmospheric pressure is 100 kilopascals. So what's coming out of here is about 10% higher. So 15 psi, we're looking basically at 1.5 psi. Very, very low. You know, oh, 10 kilopascals. Well, it's only 10% of atmospheric pressure, which is 15 psi, so we're looking at 1.5. Obviously, coming in, we're 25 megapascals, so shoot, what's that? 1 megapascal would be 10 atmospheres, 10 times 25, 250 atmospheres of pressure. Super high. And this is, you know, this is what you need. I mean, this is how you make your technology more efficient. High pressure, high temperature. And as high as you can engineer it until the thing bursts. And I mean, we've come to the point, you know, fortunately, where these things don't blow up and they've got hours of operation. But so, you know, the top is just sort of showing the materials, what's going on, and then the bottom is more or less the energy flow. So gigajoules per hour, the electricity going in. So obviously the pump itself has to get going to move water through. You know, and here's where you say, oh, look how efficient it is, because I've got this little 25 gigajoule per hour system cranking out all these gigajoules. Well, you still have your coal, your ancient biomass coming in to power this thing. And I don't know if you've been listening to the news, but it sounds like India is just now feeling, oh man, we really got to catch up with this whole industrial revolution. I mean, India is poised to put on a bunch of coal-fired power plants, and there really is no international agreement or consensus against it. It's kind of a weird, it's a weird thing, man. So those are really the highlights of the chapter. We went into a lot of detail on, I'll just summarize here. We started off, really with just the thermal capacity equation, if you will. We looked at the relationship between temperature and heat, decided that all of these energies are measured in joules. We did a little bit of units analysis. We then went down and I hope did a nice job explaining thermal efficiency and why you can't ever really hit 100% efficiency, looking at some of the challenges that Carnot saw, 150 years ago with the steam engines, and then, took a reasonable look at some of the specific technologies. So, again, I really like that chapter a lot. If there were parts of chapter 5 that you don't understand or need some help on, shoot me an email. I'll do my best to fill you in. And then, as I said, I will not be here on Thursday. If Mark Olson can be, I'll let you know. For now, just plan on not being here for lecture, but just using the time to catch up. And then we'll move on. The chapter's got, 14, or the book has 14 chapters, so by the time we're done with 7, we'll be halfway through. Cruising right along. Thanks.